Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about media production, and our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. And today it's Saturday, so there's nothing other than Q&A, and we'll do a Q&A as long as you're asking questions. So it's a little bit more relaxed on Saturday, but we are testing some things. So we are playing with the 5.1 pipe, the 4K pipe, and the HDR pipe. And so you may notice that the color while we play with it might change for us as we're kind of going through it. And as we kind of play with this idea, we're getting ready. By the end of the year, we plan to switch over to this pipeline for all the shows, but we're going to play with it live for a little while before we do that. So stay tuned for that. Again, if you have any questions, you can also use the QR code, and that the URL for that is askofficehours.com, but there is sometimes a QR code that appears right here while I talk about that, but it's not appearing today. We're also, people are getting, yeah, there we go. See, there it is. There's the QR code there, so you can use that as well. You don't have to log in or do anything else. Also, a quick reminder that if you're in Discord, the connection to the radio app is there, the link to the test flight radio app, and it has now the link to the same place that the QR code goes, so that you can actually just ask questions from the radio app. That's a little update this week. So anyway, jump on that as well, and let's go ahead and jump into the first question. And CJ is just getting started here. Welcome, CJ, as a reader. So let's go ahead and jump into the questions.
Okay, good morning from Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida. How would you explain mic acoustics, reflection, transmission, mic patterns, noise cancellation to a child?
Courtney?
I guess it depends on how old the child is. You know, one way to start would be you could take a piece of pipe or tubing, just large enough to fit in the ear, and stick it in their ear, have him stick it in his ear and listen with it, and show him the directionality, how that changes the directionality of his hearing as you talk, as you go across the end of that little tube. It could be a straw or a piece of electrical conduit. Or you could take a cup and make it into a megaphone by cutting out the base of it and talk through that, and show him how your voice changes and how directional it becomes when you amplify it through a cone-shaped device. That kind of teaches you about acoustics. Teach him about noise cancellation. You better wait till he's a little older to explain that one, because a lot of adults don't even understand that, apparently. About 180 degrees and reflections off of things. There's also space and science museums. I know there's one in San Francisco, and there used to be one down in downtown LA that has a big parabolic dish at one end of it. And if you stand right at the focal point of the parabolic dish, you can have someone stand on the other side of the room and whisper, and you can hear it. So that's another way to show how sound bounces off surfaces and can be amplified by reflection. So there's about 3 ways.
Good, CJ.
I like to think about sound in the same way I think about light. It's an electromagnetic wave. So I would get a flashlight, because kids know what a flashlight is. Shine it against a white piece of paper. I'm going to explain reflection. Shine it against something that is semi-translucent. Transmission. You have one of those flashlights that has a variable lens on it. You're going to show how a pattern was going to change as it's listening. And then noise cancellation, probably get a gel. Get a piece of CTO or CTB and say, I only want to see the orange. I only want to see the blue.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So a guitar string or a rubber band is a big rubber band is a good methods to show what's happening when you talk, because you can hit that, and then if they can see the reverberation, and then you can kind of explain how that works in a microphone. It's all of these. Doing this all at once, that might be a lot for a child to really fathom right there. I like the light thing. The other thing is you can also get in front of a fan, and that shows reflection when you start saying, Luke, I am your father, or something like that.
I did ask ChatGPT what it thought around this, and I said, all right, let's imagine that we're in a magical land called Soundville. This is ChatGPT. In Soundville, we have friends called sound waves, and that like to travel around and tell everyone what they hear. He goes, sound waves are invisible ripples in the air that carry sounds from Soundville to our ears. Imagine you throw a rock into a pond. The pond idea is actually pretty good. So imagine that. Anyway, I put it in.
That Soundville thing, though, I don't know what your Chat GPT's been smoking, but it's hallucinating a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if the Soundville thing really works. Go ahead, CJ.
I got imagine your voice is a bouncy ball. When you throw it at a wall, it comes back. If you throw it through a soccer net, it goes through. Reflection, transmission.
The the thing that I've talked about the most is mostly that the for generally for sound waves, the first thing I do is just hit something with water because you can see the waves and you can say that's what's happening. There's different the lower ones are bigger waves and the little ones are higher waves and so and these go through it. And then I talk a little bit about, because I've had to describe this a couple times to kids, and a microphone, actually, those waves go in and out and push that microwave back and forth and push the microphone back and forth, and it actually turns that into electricity, and then it pushes it out. And most kids, it depends on what, most kids where I grew up knew a lot about electricity because we have electric fences. Next question.
Next question from me in central Pennsylvania. Many cameras have difficulty with the high end of the visible light spectrum. Is this a function of camera sensors, compression algorithms, or something else? Coloring ARRI Alexa footage, there's no problem, but iPhone concert shots suffer in purple and blue. It's a QR code, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm wondering which phone.
CJ, how did that work for you?
I use it all the time. It was great. I had a question, and I thought, wait a minute, it's not live, but this might be good for later. And then I'm very meta because I'm reading it.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about the QR code, by the way, if you're watching, is that you can ask that any time, and it goes into a register that doesn't get reset every day. So you don't have to wait for the morning if you just think about it. And once you get the radio app on, you can just go click on it and open it up, and then just ask that question whenever it comes to you, and then you're able to come back to it. Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
That's a good point, because I saw that Laura Seal actually had a great question the other day about SDI distribution, and it must have got reset because she hasn't been watching lately. So that's a good thing for viewers to know, is that they can use that QR code and hit it even before the reset, so they don't lose that question. So we lost a question. Back to this. Oh, go ahead.
But but you can ask that question anytime, and basically it's in a different place than the main event, so we can push them in. Now we have to get to them on the day of the event because there's nowhere for them to go back to yet. So we're working on that part. Anyway, go ahead, Kai.
Yeah, I'm wondering which phone that they have, because if you look at the this is
CJ's
a 14.
Here. CJ is they.
Yeah, CJ, which phone do you have?
I've got the 15 Pro now, but just I've shot a lot of concert video from when the 3G had video to now, and I actually go back and watch it. So that's.
So
but anyway,
have you tried this where if you go into your camera settings, instead of you enable for video capture Apple ProRes, so then when you go into your camera app, you actually have, when you go to video, you have that ProRes. You can kind of see that it's X'd out, but now.
So in other words, it is compression that's causing that.
Yeah, you're basically not getting 10 bits. So now max time 7 minutes. So yeah, you can see that I can now shoot in ProRes with the phone, and that'll give me a much more color depth. So I don't know if you're limited to 8-bit, but I'd imagine that you're just not getting that color. And so when you go to edit that footage, you're getting, that fidelity is not there because it was never captured to begin with. So especially in those luminance and chrominance values that are just out of gamut, they call it. So you're storing it in a format where it was never stored, so it's thrown away. It's not there to edit with or to grade or anything like that. But if you can shoot in ProRes, you'll definitely have it.
Go ahead, CJ.
It probably wouldn't, for size consideration, unless I was bringing on a little hard drive with me. I wouldn't shoot ProRes at a show unless it was something you're getting paid for and it was for other people's consumption. It was more of a curiosity because it's always, when it gets to that super purple, almost ultraviolet spectrum, it just always got clipped. And then I was on a color job last year, And it was the first, and they did this like club scene that had lasers and strobe lights and these incredible purples. And I was like, this looks amazing. But there you go. It's in the bits.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, you got to remember lasers are very narrow bandwidth, so you can see colors in lasers. Lasers can generate colors that you don't see in the real world, so that's difficult. The other thing is the periscope camera or the prism-based camera to get the longer lens folded into that that tiny sensor in front of that tiny sensor. Maybe that is changing the color because that prism has to be coated on one side with a type of metal, and depends on the reflectivity of the metal that they used in the coating. So it's possible that it may be attenuating some frequencies. And of course, CMOS sensors are sensitive to infrared, a lot more infrared, and usually they don't put an infrared filter in front of them, which they should. They do on higher end cameras.
Yeah, and the thing that's easy to do as well is that you can clip the camera. You can clip certain channels, but not other channels. So the channels that oftentimes, as soon as you do any kind of color correction, you can clip in the linear space. It's really easy to clip those. And so that's what we find a lot of times when we have something that's dark and a lot of bright areas, is you're not clipping everything equally. You're clipping the colors that are coming in through those lights that are peaking, but the other colors are not getting peaked. So if you do any kind of color correction to it, it shows up pretty quickly that you don't have any information there. The reason that the ARRI in general is working better is because it's generally working in log. And so now the new cameras, I just did this yesterday with my kids' concerts. They were at a school concert, and I could record log. I haven't opened it up and played with it yet, but I could record log on my, I think I might be able to find it here, but log on my iPhone, which was kind of crazy. Like at first I was like, I don't know if this is gonna. I mean, you were able to do this with Filmic to some degree, but this is just with the iPhone app that I was able to set it to. It was Apple ProRes and log. So as Guy said, with a 1 terabyte drive, I think it said that I had about an hour of so it was definitely a lot of data. It hasn't, and they haven't even made it to my. I don't think they've made it to my phone yet. So so it's still a lot of data. So that is. But I think if you start shooting with the iPhone 15 with log, you may find that you're using up a lot of drive space. But you may find that you have a lot more color and a lot closer to what the ARRI can do, especially in post production. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I just turned around and shot a little bit while. Let's see, let me cut to that camera. So that one's, here we go, auto. So now if this is a purple color, and this was shot in ProRes just now, and you can see that as I start to do things like change the shadows or change the contrast, there's just more to play with here, brightness. And so that's editing just, in the phone app. But yeah, this is ProRes adjusting colors that are, and then when I hit done, let's go ahead and play this clip now. I mean, that's for a phone, that's pretty amazing. And then this is piping through NDI screen capture, so you guys aren't seeing the full resolution, but it looks really good on this screen. I'm looking at it down in front of me, and it looks really good. So yeah,
And
I think it's
light grading on the built-in Photos app. That's insane.
It is insane. It's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it really the 15 really feels like it's the first one that it's a production. You can find other phones that are production phones. I mean, other cameras that are production cameras that have more features and more dials and more other things. But the iPhone 15, you could shoot a film in. Like it really is that step. I mean, people have shot films with the smaller ones for a long time. I think Tangerine was the first movie that was shot with a full length movie, but you could take iPhones out. I mean, Apple's been kind of going towards this for a little while. But I think that they're at a point where you could shoot something like, for instance, if you look at the new Creator was shot with Gareth Edwards. I think shot that on the whole movie on an FX3. And it's a full on effects film. That's shot on a camera that was, I don't know, a $3,000 camera or $4,000 camera. Go ahead, CJ.
I colored a film a couple years ago that was it was a documentary on wine in the Republic of Georgia, and the whole thing was shot on an iPhone 6, just to give you an idea of time. And when they were in some really dark scenes, like they were down in caves and going to the original places where they had made this wine underground in the Quevers, some of the shots were really, really challenging to get because it's iPhone footage. And I'm not sure if they got money from Apple to shoot it on iPhone 6 to have, say, made, shot on iPhone at the end. But I kind of want to go back and say, man, if you were going to put something that I worked on an iMac screen, it'd be nice to relive that with the 15.
Yeah, if you were shooting, and again, I think that there's still better cameras. I'm not going to say this is as good as an ARRI or this is as good as a Venice or even some of the Blackmagic cameras. It's just that you really get that this has become a production camera, especially if you're doing news gathering, if you're doing training videos, if you're doing those kinds of things. I think that this is well within the ability to do that now with all the controls that have been added, and especially, I have to admit that yesterday when I threw it on, I threw it up to. I opened up the Blackmagic camera and immediately saw the thing, and it was too much control. And I was like, I don't know if I'm not going to shoot my kids' little music concert with this because I don't know enough about the dials yet. So I went back to the phone. So I'm gonna dig into that a little bit more. But I really feel like the camera has taken some new leap, in that process. Next question.
Okay, next question from Carlo Prina in London. It's been a week since the iPhone 15 series came out. Anyone have initial thoughts on the video capabilities in the real world?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a QR code question as well.
Yeah, I think we just kind of talked. We addressed it a little bit, but we'll address it a little bit more because another question there. Go ahead, CJ.
I just shot. I got the iPhone last week, and I shot some video and some photos with it this week, and just the low light performance and the low light performance in general is outstanding with the when you're shooting in RAW. But the real game changer for me has been that 5x zoom, the ability to grab detail from that far away without any of the digital trickery that's going on has just been a pleasure.
And I even did then zoom past that, for last night for this little recital. And I was amazed at just the quality you get when you're zoomed in. Like it's because it's using that 5x and then adding more digitally. And it was I was going to try to show an example here, but let's see. I realized. So I went to plug my phone in, and I got the iPhone 15 yesterday, so it was there. Oh, CJ, yeah, do you want to? Is that another question, or are you going to show that? Yeah, look at that. That's
yeah. This was this was Pittsburgh this week. I just threw it up in preview. This was, I think, 7 or 8 shots that then got stitched, and I had a little bit of Photoshop to. I wanted the full disclosure. It's a fake sky. I drug a big rectangle here, and just said, "Hey, give me a new sky," because the clouds weren't what I wanted it to be, and it did a pretty bang up job. But then the issue was that the grain that was of the sensor noise was there because of it being in low light, but then the sky had no grain at all. So I had to take the grain off of and maybe this wasn't the best way to achieve this, but I took the grain away from the photo and then applied grain to the whole thing afterwards to try to make it more consistent. But way across, I mean, you just got these incredible details and the detail and the reflection on the water. I mean, I was just in shock that I was able to get this on a phone.
Yeah, and this is just a really quick shot of that. This is from the stuff I was shooting last night. It's my daughter playing the bass, and that's like, I don't know, like a solid 80 feet away. I'm at like 10x shooting in log, across there, and it was kind of, and the thing that you want to notice, not only is it interesting that I'm shooting at 10x, from somewhere else, is that I'm shooting in, and look at how smooth it is. I mean, I'm moving a little bit, but because I'm trying to figure out what I'm grabbing, but the we can all know that how shaky that should be, as they got through there. So anyway, it's pretty impressive. Yeah, go ahead, CJ.
Did you notice when you were recording video that far zoomed in, because when I'm taking a still photo that's zoomed in, there's kind of a half a second delay as that sensor is getting stabilized. Is the algorithm in the video smoothing that out?
Yeah, I didn't notice that at all. Yeah, there wasn't any. There didn't seem to be any delay. It was yeah, it was pretty crazy. I was kind of amazed at it. I got to color correct it. I'll show it maybe on Sunday once it's been color corrected there. But that's just from the regular iPhone app. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, like she mentioned, using the iPhone for news gathering.
Which has been happening for quite some time.
Yeah, and the problem with that is, I mean, it's great. It delivers great pictures, and it cuts well with everything else. The problem is you don't get respect. And the problem is the person you're interviewing, sees all these people with iPhones. They don't know who's the legitimate reporter and who's the Yahoo taking a picture for Aunt Mildred.
Yep.
They had to have some little case that you put on it, makes it look like a shoulder-mounted ENG camera with a light on top.
It's funny, I see this more in Asia than the thing I see more in Asia than I see here is people taking the little cameras, whether it's just small cameras or iPhones, and just building a huge rig around them. And they really do build a rig that looks like a full-on camera, but it's just the iPhone. And I realize that part of it is having it not feel like I just picked up my phone. It's like there's a whole rig, and to your point, that has a lot of other bits and pieces to it. When I'm saying news gathering, generally what I'm talking about are the reporters have many of the foreign reporters. I was in DC, a couple years ago for 6 months, and we were at a news gathering. We were basically, our offices were where all of the Eurovision, so all the Eurovision members, which is all of the major broadcasters in Europe, are all in one building in Washington, D.C. And so we'd see them go out all the time. And I got to see them over a decade because I had an office there. And it was reduced from a producer. I mean, over 10 years, it was reduced from a producer and a big camera and, like a little wheelie thing that had to go into the car to a reporter out there with an iPhone. Like it was like, and it was and literally they were using like the iPhone ear, and a couple of them I was like, you could do better. Like you could do something more than just a little iPhone ear for that. And they're like, really? And then they'd go buy some little extra bit for it to make it work. But they were literally putting them on tripods and just standing in front of them and gathering it. And I got to say, I saw them do it, and I would go look at the footage, because I'd see the news go through, and I'd see the footage that I saw them shooting in front of my apartment or in front of my whatever. And I was like, it didn't look any different than anything else that was there. So you're right. You're totally right. I mean, so much of production in general in life is confidence, people thinking that you know what you're doing. And so, how you interact and the kind of tools you used and all those things do make a difference. And so that is a challenge, but there's a lot of news gathering that doesn't require an interview, and so they, that happens too. Yeah, go ahead, CJ.
About 12 years ago, I was in the video department for the Chicago Tribune, and I remember getting really, really tired and really, really hot in the summer when I was lugging a big camera down the street. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, if I had a DJI gimbal with an iPhone and a decent mic setup, because really half the video is the audio sounding good, right? What a difference that would have made. But the other thing about, I think it was 2013, the Chicago Sun-Times famously converted all of they actually let go of their photography staff. That was kind of sad, but their replacement was they gave reporters iPhones. Probably more of the 2 steps ahead, you're a martyr kind of situation, but I mean, it's probably more possible.
Yeah, there was a pretty hard change in many industries, like about maybe 15 years ago. Well, 15 years ago they went to DSLRs, right? Or maybe a little more than 15 years ago, and they went to DSLRs, and that happened in Nat Geo, and a whole bunch of the photographers just quit and then didn't know what to do. They quit. They're the film photographers, and they didn't want to shoot video. They were just like, that's not my jam. And so I talked to one of them. He now takes, I don't know what he does now, but 15 years ago he was basically traveling with very wealthy families and took pictures of them as if he was National Geographic for their vacations. And it's cool. It's quite a gig, in case you're wondering. But they had that problem, and I think that a lot of companies, everyone's always got to be the first one. And as CJ said, you're 1 step ahead, you're a leader, and 2 steps ahead, you're a martyr. And probably jumped in a little too early. I found an old video of myself. I'll have to think I downloaded it. I was kind of excited that I had found it. It was me. I was searching for something else. And it just pops up, and because it's the most viewed video that I've ever done. It had about 2 million views before. It had 2 million views, and it wasn't on YouTube. It was just a random because Wired picked it up, and I put it out there. And I was, I was kind of randomly looking for something else and found it. I'll see if I can find it again. But it's when the 3GS came out. So the 3GS was the first. It was the second or third phone. I can't remember which one it was. And I was really excited about it, and so I built a fake rig. Yeah, the 3G. Yeah, the third one. And I built a fake rig and said, this is going to be the future. But that was, whatever. And I did a video about it, and Wired did a, what do you think? Kind of post. I'll see if I can find out while we're talking. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, but they ought to have, maybe they do. I know the DJI Action Cam and maybe the new GoPro Hero 12 or 15 or whatever it's up to now has the automatic horizontal shooting regardless of what position the camera is in, and keeps the horizon level. That would be great for news reporters, so the idiots that hold up their camera in vertical mode rather than turning it horizontal will still be shooting 16:9 carved out of the 4K sensor for 1080p, so that they can file their reports without them having to do the embarrassing focus things on the side and limiting that vertical format. That would be great. Regardless of how you hold the phone, it always shoots 16:9.
That's just crazy talk. That's all I got to say. No, I can't. I know I downloaded it, but here's my problems. I know. Oh, here it is. Hold on. You can see a very much younger and thinner version of me. Hold on. Let's see if I can pull this over here. And I don't have any way to get audio from this computer in, so we'll. You can probably find this. This is a Mac break from a long time ago. Hold on. We're obviously a little bit more relaxed on Saturdays than other days. Hold on. Here we go. But this was the let's see here. This is me showing off the 2GS, talking about it. And that was me showing the image there.
Wow, you were younger then.
I was a lot younger, 15 years, It's not the years, it's the miles. Let's see here, but yeah, we this was in our old office in San Francisco, but then I went and I built this. And we built this like the morning of the event. As soon as they announced it, we started just grabbing junk around the office and throwing it together. So I put this all together here. There's my little rig. So I was like, this is going to be the future. So anyway, that was a little while ago. I'll try to post that video somewhere, but it was a fun video. And it just destroyed our servers because we just thought it'd be fun for Mac Break. And then Wired picked it up, and it just I got a call from my service provider, like, what's going on? Hey, how's it going? We're moving a lot of video. What are you doing over there? So anyway, this is back when it was expensive to do that kind of thing. Thank you to Matt at Cashfly. We really appreciate your patience. Next question.
From Tony Liuzzi in Seaford, another QR question. How are the sources synchronized when you cut from wide to a close-up on the same talent?
Good guy.
Yeah, I'm wondering what he's using. Like on the stage shows, we're using Trax cameras at Grass Valleys, and they've got a frame sync, and so it's synced by the line. I mean, it's just dead on. So when you cut from a wide to a close-up, it's imperceptible. So I'm wondering if you're running through like a switcher with frame syncs, and they're different types of cameras.
Well, and I think
so
this might be a more general question of just not having done this before, of any kind of sync. I don't think it's even frame sync. I think this is just more general question there. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, professionally, they use what's called time code, and each camera then has a clock that runs. It's very accurate to the thousandth of a second, and they're synchronized together before the shoot starts. and they're recording time code markers into each file that they're shooting. So when you bring it into an editing program later, you can take your wide shot and your close-up that are shot on 2 different cameras from 2 different locations and sync them up using the time code. Another way to do it is how they've done it in Hollywood for years, is to put a slate in front of both cameras and do that at the beginning of a shot. Of course, once you cut, you no longer stay in sync. So as long as the camera keeps rolling, you can synchronize that sound of the clapsticks coming together and the clapsticks hitting each other between the 2 cameras and maintain sync throughout, because most cameras have a consistent time base so that they will stay in sync. That's if you're not, doing a live show. If you're doing a live show, it's like Guy said, where the cameras are gen-locked together so that when they cut from one to the other, they're, exactly in vertical sync and even horizontal sync between the 2 of them. So it'll be a seamless cut from one to the other, because they're usually deriving from the same house sync signal. Or they have crystal sync generators, which they use the time code to sync together jam sync together before they run out with handheld cameras.
Good, CJ.
And if you're in post, I think since Premiere had it a little bit before, but Final Cut does a really good job since Final Cut 10 of, if you've got if the cameras are recording audio, you can just click on them and it'll sync up the waveforms, even if it's not a great onboard camera microphone and then you've got a second system somewhere else. That whole grouping of clips together makes it really easy.
Next question.
Okay, next question from Eric Hers in Hartford, Connecticut. What is the best WebRTC CDN content distribution network? CloudFlare may have some issues, and there's a link.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so I don't know about best, but the one that we used in the past was TalkBox, which was acquired. They acquired from Telefonica, and then Vonage acquired TalkBox, and then Vonage was acquired by Ericsson. So Ericsson has a WebRTC CDN that we've used in the past. It's expensive.
Yeah, AWS is being used by folks. So there's oftentimes some kind of front end, but it is AWS has the facility, or people are using it for this process. So I don't actually know what the best one is. I would say that it depends on how much you want to dig into it. So remember that Zoom also has Zoom SDK. So Zoom SDK is kind of I would say it's not exactly WebRTC. It has some history there, but it really is a much more robust transversal through networks and so on and so forth. So if you just want to build the app and you don't want to deal with how all the video gets back and forth and all the basic interactions that we see in Zoom, I would definitely recommend looking at the Zoom SDK to make that happen. There's another one called, I think, daily.co or TV or whatever that lets you build apps on top of it. And I have a partner that's been using it, but I haven't had enough time to really dig into it. Next question.
And another riff on the theme from Eric Hers in Hartford, Connecticut. Thoughts about WebRTC support being added to FFmpeg, and another link.
I think it's an interesting thing to do to connect, to have FFmpeg support WebRTC. I don't think of FFmpeg in that way. So I have to look at it a little bit deeper. I know that's probably pretty brand new, and I appreciate bringing it up, but I haven't been able to study it very deeply. But I do feel like it's a interesting. It's again the way WebRTC works and the way FFmpeg works. I find it interesting that would cross over, but it could. Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
From Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas, trying the updated Bard, which connects to Gmail and other Google products, and the results are truly impressive. I asked it to go to a folder and collate speaker bios and questions in a given conversation, and it did wonderfully. Comment.
I think that this is going to actually be one of the more popular things that we do with AI is to have it sort through things for us, and questions could be one of those things. And I think we're looking at some stuff in the future for what we're doing here to be able to sort through lots and lots of questions. It's not a big deal for the kind of questions, the number of questions we get on office hours is not a big deal, but I get events where we have, 5,000, 6,000 questions in 20 minutes. And how do you find the ones you're looking for? That's what we're looking at using for it. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I think personal assistants are now thinking about unionizing because their jobs are going to be in trouble. This is one of the things I think the writers were, striking over is the use of GPT to perform these tasks that normally involved writers, although this is kind of a mundane task, but being able to scour through stuff and summarize it. A friend of mine gets paid to scour through stuff for a psychologist who takes depositions and does reports to the court and so on. And I've tried to get him to use ChatGPT to summarize this stuff, and he's been afraid to use it because I think he sees the writing on the wall that if it works really well, it could be taking his job.
Yeah, and it's happened. I mean, this has happened before when we saw rotoscoping, hit, and a lot of visual effects firms. They started using rotoscoping as a, like, oh, we can send this to India. And at first it wasn't very good, and it was a little hit and miss. And then the Indian rotoscopers got really good because they had so much work, and then they got all the work. And that put an incredible amount of pressure. I think that what people, when they talk about the difficulties in the visual effects industry, there was a lot of this kind of undefined work, like rotoscoping, that no one really knew how much that cost to do. So it wasn't, and so that was like fat in the system that you could use to make up for visual effects being harder than you thought, or other things like that. And it was anyway, it was one of those things that when it got taken away, it took so much safety away from all the VFX firms, and it put them on. A lot of them started going under, but it was because they were trying to wring out a little bit more profit by, first they themselves were sending the rotoscoping out overseas, and then of course the producers realized that was just available and said, well, we'll just take it there, and they didn't have them do it anymore. So they didn't. What was a profit, adding a little extra profit turned out to be something that didn't work. And I think you're right that could be the case for a lot of things with ChatGPT. Go ahead, CJ.
I think for anybody who gets a lot of email, any tool that you can use to make that easier to digest is a total game changer. I haven't had experience with Bard. We're not a G Suite at work, but I have had some emails where two people get a little tense with one another, and the email gets very, very long, and it's kind of stream of consciousness. And I copy and pasted the email and I said, hey, tell me who are the stakeholders in this email. What are their concerns? And then it gave me a nice little summary. Well, this is person A, and they want X, Y, and Z, and this is person B, and they want A, B, C, and D. And it was really great. I just, I find myself, I have a text expander snippet that's a prompt. I have a couple prompts that says, hey, this is my email. Clean it up, make it as few words as possible so that the person on the other end of the line isn't getting, respect their time. But then I have another one that's, okay, read this email and tell me what the thing is. And I feel better about using the API call, because then when my ChatGPT window is open, all my email is not there in the history.
Yeah, oops, sorry. I have it on my iPhone because we're looking at the HDR thing here. I think that, I think I've mentioned before, one of the things I was talking to a YouTuber, and when people send them complaints, to what they're doing, they said, I just use ChatGPT, tell them this, and this, and it just sends out an email that sounds much nicer than what they want to say in words, and it's nice and long, and it really feels like it. And they just if someone's kind of is problematic. I mean, obviously, if they have a good complaint or a valid one, they respond to it themselves. But for people who are just, you get a lot of errata when you do stuff on the internet, and so it's easier to just send something back from the machine than to, and it's emotionally easier because they don't have to think about it or interact with it. Go ahead, CJ.
So what I've got here is, this is Mac GPT, and I just type in GPT email, and it pops out my prompt. And it says, hello again, ChatGPT, and there's a big prompt about how I need assistance with my email. And then it's not working right now, because usually it says prompt mode engaged, let me know what you want. And then I have my email that I'd like to clean up in the clipboard. So then I paste that in, and it's about 80% of the way there. It's pretty cool.
And the answer is no, I can't get this to go all the way to 0 for some reason. All right. Next question.
Okay, next question from Chris Widener in Lafayette, Indiana. If you were looking for your next full-time job opportunity, where would you look? LinkedIn? Somewhere else?
Jeffrey?
So, and I'm kind of doing that right now. I'm not really looking for a full-time position, but I'm looking for part-time jobs because I have to pay some bills. So I've been doing a lot of gig economy stuff. Yes, I do have a Fiverr set up, a couple Fiverrs set up to do some basic editing of videos. But I did do one of the things I did do was LinkedIn, and I took. They give you a free month, and take the highest plan for the free month is my recommendation. And then after that, figure out if that's what you want to continue on or scale back down to something else. But at least get a month in there because what they do have, speaking of AI, is they have some AI resume writing options on there. So you can clean up the resume that you have sitting in LinkedIn and get that all updated. And then, of course, that I've been getting a lot of job opportunities through there. I've also been going through just all the regular ones like Monster, like Indeed or anything like that. And then just the local jobs, sometimes you can find them on websites, and government jobs, they have their own spot for that. And I know that Chris has worked with the government before, so you might be able to find something from there. But yeah, not a bad place to start.
Yeah, I haven't had to do it very many times in my life, but I have had to do it. And I have always gotten jobs that were related to people whom I knew, and so building building relationships. And I don't really do it. I'm not a very good networker in the sense that I'm sending out everybody little cards and doing all little things. But what I do a lot is, and so this isn't going to help you right now, but I will tell everyone that what you want to be doing is thinking about how you build relationships with people that you like over very long periods of time, and that means trying to help them when they have trouble, almost every job I've gotten has been from somebody who needed something and I helped them and didn't ask for anything and never reminded them again and never thought about it. Like the people that are in my network, I try to help wherever I can at any given time. I don't think about, the time. I have lots of people who say, well, I don't know when I'm going to do something. I'm going to just call and I'm, like it's free to talk to me for half an hour if you're trying to figure something out. Like, if you start wanting me to design something for you, it costs money, but otherwise just give me a call and we'll talk about it. And so I help a lot of people along with those kinds of things without really any expectation. The same thing happens here in office hours. The panel here shows up and is part of a conversation over many, many, in this case, years. And you're building a relationship with people by serving them. And this is how you build that connection out with lots and lots of people. I do it kind of naturally, but I will say that there is a process to that of being part of a community. And when you need it, oftentimes that community can come up and support you, in that process. But being part of that is something that's really important. And I think that a lot of times we miss that because we get busy and things are good right now. So we ignore doing that on an ongoing basis. But like a lot of times, like I have work come in that I can't do and I'll pass it off to somebody else. I'm going to go hire that person or get that person or do this. And I'm constantly trying to push work and make connections with people. And I've had companies come back and I've sold millions of dollars of stuff from between one company to another. And they're like, so what do you want out of that? And I'm like, nothing. This is I'm just happy that everybody got what they needed. And because I don't ask for those things, I have lots of partnerships and I have lots of people. When I said there was a company that I was working with and I needed help to prove that their company was the right one, but it was going to cost them like $20,000 to prove it. And then I help them turn that into something. But they trust me because I've done a lot of stuff in the past. I have a lot there. And so these things happen over years or decades. And you really want to think about it. And the way, I try to keep on underlining, and, it's volunteering in office hours means you're meeting other people, and people have already hired other people for those kinds of things. Volunteering in, being a panelist, being connected in your community, being all those other things. Those are the things that start to tie those sinews together. But if you try to harvest it too early, it's not going to be ready yet. It's not. It's like in it's not ready yet. In Guardians of the Galaxy. So you just have to. And the thing is that you want to try to never harvest it if you don't have to. What you want to be doing is constantly pushing out support to other people as much as you possibly can, and building those relationships, knowing that they solve themselves. Like, it really does solve itself. But the two temptations is when you're doing well, you just ignore everybody else, or you don't do those outreaches. And when you're not doing well, you also sometimes can pull back. I've done that in the past. You pull back and you don't want to be connected to people. But this is something that is a very long-term thing. And when I think of it like an orchard, it's when you're now just hunting for work, you're really hunting and gathering. And what I'm talking about is farming. And farming is something that you're going to plant seeds today, and they're going to be ready sometime in long in the future. And some of them will grow, and some of them won't. And so you just have to, it's a lot of seed, that goes out. And so, but I find that, again, it works naturally with my personality. It's just how I work. I like to work with people that I like, and I don't like to work with people I don't like. And I kind of nurture the relationships that I can in those areas. And I found that Discord is really easy for that. But anyway, so I don't have a solve for you right now. But what I would say is that you want to be thinking about this today for something that you might need years from now, and figuring out how to get involved with the communities that matter makes a huge difference. Go ahead, CJ.
The other thing that from a hiring manager's position, I really, really dislike when I get the generic Indeed or LinkedIn, just plain Jane formatted resume that was generated by whatever you filled out on a form. If you're going to care about a job, care to take the 10 minutes to go into Pages or go into whatever layout program you like, and just make your resume look nice, make the margins look good, make the spacing look good. Don't make it generic. Tailor it to the job. Don't just spray and pray. Make it meaningful. Because for me, I'm hiring people. I can teach most of the things that you're going to need to do a job, but I need somebody who's going to care and who's going to have integrity. And when I see somebody submit a resume that's just the generic thing that Indeed generated, it's a turnoff.
Yeah, and I think that also when you I don't have any degrees at all, and I think that you also think about you pay less attention to your resume and more attention to how you relate to other people, because in the back of your head, anytime doesn't have a good degree, in the back of your head, hidden somewhere there is the next job after this is McDonald's. So it keeps you. It's like a little engine that keeps you going. We were talking about that. I was in Vegas, and there's a bunch of us that are all started companies. We're all about the same size, and we noticed that none of us had any degrees, and so it kept all of us kind of going. Is because there's nothing to lean back on. Next question.
Next question from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. OpenAI, in collaboration with Apple's former VP of Industrial Design, Jony Ive, is delving into a venture termed the iPhone of AI, with a reported $1 billion in backing from SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son. Please talk this over.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I don't know what an industrial designer would be doing with OpenAI's algorithmic designers, but maybe, who knows, maybe he's designing a human interface for an AI that would, look like a river stone with the chrome coating on it and have no holes in it whatsoever. Like there's this coffee table you can get from Williams-Sonoma that looks like that. That's kind of what Jony Ive would come up with. And you just talk to it, and it gives you back information. Maybe it has a projector inside that projects the generative AI on the wall, and it comes out of if it's chrome coated, it could come out from behind the chrome and project on the ceiling. That would be really interesting. But that's how Jony Ive, I think, would be involved. And it's interesting that he comes from, if he's been with Apple for so long that he goes over to the, OpenAI, which is, controlled by Microsoft pretty much these days.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I feel like they might be a little behind on this, but it's possible. I mean, because a lot of the stuff is working pretty well right now, even with what ChatGPT is doing. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to catch up and do something that truly turns the corner there. I wouldn't put it past them, though. I mean, the thing is they've thought about, it's not so much its user interface, and I don't know if it actually has to do with hardware or software, but really the thing that Jony Ive had to do for a long time, is just think about how people are thinking about these things. So I think that's part of that. Let's go to the next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. Would it be worth upgrading from an iPhone 14 Plus to an iPhone 15 Pro Max? It seems the 15 is almost a production Swiss Army knife.
Jeffrey?
So the iPhone 14 Plus would have been the A15 chip. And then, of course, the 14 Pro is the A16 Bionic chip. And then the 15 Pro is the A17. So you're basically jumping a chip to get the best performance. So in that aspect, even though it's a 1 year difference, it's technically a 2 year difference in technology. And then, of course, if you just don't want to buy another lightning cable, go for the USB-C.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, check with your carrier, because I'm seeing ads on TV that says they'll take any iPhone in trade to give you a new 15. I don't know if it'll be the Pro Max, but a 15 Pro for free at your carrier. They're going to make you sign up for another 2 years, or as their carrier, they're going to tie you into a contract of some sort. But it's most of the carriers are doing this free upgrade deal to entice people in. So check if you've got an older iPhone, especially a 14. They should take in trade for a free exchange without paying any extra money, probably.
Next question.
Next question from Eric Hers in Hartford, Connecticut. Thoughts about Simulcast and moving all compression to the edge? There's a link.
I think that the Simulcast makes sense if you're trying to just get out in front of a lot of folks. The big problem with Simulcast in general, and I'm trying to figure out, and I admit if you send things with anything complex links that we haven't seen before, it's hard for us to go through the links. So definitely try to send links a little bit earlier so that we can see what that actually looks like. CJ, do you want to kind of give us a little overview of what this is, what he means by Simulcast? Because it means a lot of different things. Oh, I'm throwing it right at you there. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. So it essentially you've got a lot of different streams that are going out to the internet, and it's depending on your connection, it's going to figure out like which one am I going to grab, and it's not quite the same thing as like when you're watching Netflix or an Apple TV movie and you get that little tiny bit of, it's a low resolution clip before it ramps up. But I was just trying to peek at his link, and I didn't realize it was a video, so I thought I'd be able to read a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, post that again, but just do it a little earlier so we can have a little more time to look at it before the show. Next question.
All right, next question from James Foslian in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Is the iPhone Pro Max base memory 256 gigabytes enough if I'm working with point clouds or other applications like this?
Go, Jeffrey.
And it really depends on what you're doing, how much you're doing, and all those fun little things. I personally like the fact that I keep my phone in a low, like 1 terabyte. I end up getting a whole bunch of stuff, and then I got to go reviewing all that stuff. Whereas with the iPhone 15, even with my 14, I have like a little dual drive where I can pull stuff off and then move it over to a computer to do the editing. I try and take all the video that I create off my phone as quick as possible, and I'll do that through that or through Dropbox overnight, and then I can keep the storage clean. And then, of course, I also have 2 terabytes on my Apple iCloud account, which help on that, and that keeps the 256 gigabytes pretty well managed. And like I said, with the iPhone 15, now you can put on a good external drive, and you'll be able to offload that a lot quicker than you would with the previous models.
Go ahead, CJ.
I struggle a little bit with this because I like to think that I'm not going to carry around that much stuff. But then after just loading up my phone and setting it up after a week, I'm sitting here at 230 gigs used, and that doesn't leave a whole lot of room for much more. The other thing to consider is that if you're in a bandwidth challenged area, or if you travel a lot and need to store things offline, whether that means it's photos or videos or podcasts or whatever, you're going to be taking a lot of stuff around with you. And it seems like the the prices that they're charging anymore. Even, the iPhone's still very expensive, but it's not, to get up to that middle tier isn't that much, and I think it's worth the investment, especially with the ability to shoot such just fat video files.
Good, Courtney.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's come up with it yet, but since it has the Pro Max has the high-speed USB-C connector on it, you could take small terabyte drives like this that are the size of or smaller than the size of the phone itself, and do a MagSafe connection on the back to have it stick on the back in a little short jumper, USB-C jumper cable. And if you're doing, acquisition, if you're shooting video, have it shoot directly onto the NVMe drive. That way it doesn't tie up your onboard storage. You can reserve all your onboard storage mainly for your apps and any data you need to carry around with you all the time without having an external drive in. But then when you're shooting video to edit later, record directly onto an NVMe, even if you just, get some double stick tape and glue it to the back.
Next question.
From Samuel Nordvik in Norway, when showing a white background on an HDR stream, how much is it ideal to turn down the highlights to not overexpose the HDR image?
Well, you're seeing in ours, we have to kind of think about our QR code, for instance, is that it is the QR code is really bright. I'm looking at it on our show, and it's like, wow, it lights up a lot. So you do have to think about those things as far as limiting those out. So we'll continue to kind of play with what those are. I don't have an exact number for you. Oftentimes, a lot of us will talk about on the straight whites, getting into the, possibly 600 nits, kind of thing, not letting it go all the way to 1,000 nits. So it depends on how you want to look at that. But I think that it's, we do have to think about pure white. You can see if you're looking at our HDR and an HDR capable device, you will notice that we need to work on that a little bit. Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, Mickey's saying in the chat, as long as engineering has a good pipeline, that they can crush that. So that's what I've noticed here too. Like when we first started doing HDR here in office hours, I had a limiter essentially that would take any web pages that would be shown and take it down from to about 95%. So I would take that threshold. But if it's piping through the office hours AJ FSHDR, and they've put a LUT on there that crushes anything so that you can't go to those extreme whites that'll, hit that 1,000 or just be blinding, then that's just proper engineering, not to let that stuff hit.
And you're going to see us continue to experiment with it because we will be doing arguably, as this goes into the daily show, we'll be doing probably more live HDR than most people do anywhere in the world. So you're just seeing us kind of play with it at the moment, and you'll see us make some adjustments as we go. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway says, crucial X9 and X10 portable solid-state drives were released some time back, and the X10 has really good performance, but can these be used at that speed on a Mac? Or is the X9 maxing out the speed?
I don't know what the speeds are for the X. I just haven't used the X9s or X10s, and so I don't know what the speeds are. I can tell you that the internally the Mac can do a lot, but generally what we see is about 2.5 gigs per second is about the most we see out of one Thunderbolt connection. That's a 10 meg, or that's a 20, is that right? 20 megabit? Connection there. 20 megabit connection. That's what we've seen so far. They have hard drives that actually will use up all of your Thunderbolts if you have a studio. But internally we're seeing transfer rates of 5 gigs a second. So it's pretty fast. Next question.
Next question from Joe Phillips in Murphy, North Carolina. I saw a hot topic in social media about the iPhone 15 overheating. Have any of you experienced this issue with large transfers or extended use?
I have had it only for a day, but have not. I keep on feeling it, waiting to see if that happens, and it hasn't happened at all. I don't know. I run it with screen on. I run for a long. I've been filming some stuff. But it's only been a day. But it hasn't been. I haven't had any heat issues at all. Go ahead, CJ.
It was a little warm on the first day, but your iPhone's downloading all of your apps and all of your photos and everything. And especially if you're trying to do any of that over cellular, I feel like the cellular antenna gets a little hotter than the Wi-Fi chip. But I think people are looking for things to to kvetch about because they've got nothing to get people in on the clickbait.
Every iPhone release has some kind of gotchas that someone's trying to do. I think the problem is it's a really good phone, and everyone's trying to find some legitimacy by trying to pick at something, and we haven't really. I mean, most of these things kind of wash their way out over the couple weeks. Next question.
From Chester Sweeney in Las Vegas, Nevada. If you could change just one physical thing on the iPhone, what would it be? I would trade the action button for a high impedance headphone jack from the QR code.
Good, CJ.
I think the one physical thing that I would change, and I don't know because I think I'm limited by physics here, is I love everything about this camera. The only thing that's the gotcha is sometimes you'll see the almost like interlens reflections. Like if they're like when I was showing that panorama of Pittsburgh, all of the lights of the city I saw the mirror image of them in the sky, and before I wiped the whole sky out, I had to say, no, go away, go away, go away. So just if there was any way that they could use their gajillion dollars of engineering budget to or some sort of machine learning, that would be what I would say.
Next question.
Next question from Roz McNulty in Vancouver, BC, Canada. Anyone want to comment on the new Quest 3? Did anyone watch the MetaConnect keynote? Does anyone see it as possible competition to the Vision Pro?
Well, I think it definitely is competition to Vision Pro in the fact that they're both in the same space, and it's definitely a lot better than it was before. And it gives people an opportunity to spend, to get an experience that isn't $3,500 starting cost. Is it going to have the same performance specs? Probably not, because I don't think it's possible to build one with the same performance specs at $500 that you get with $3,500. So the people who are spending $3,500 are probably going to be still happy with their $3,500 spend. But what you can see is that I think that Apple has increased they've moved the rung of what high-end headsets can look like. And I think you're going to see more people coming in under $3,500, but not trying to shoot for $300. I think the era of $300 headsets is probably over. And so they're most likely going to see 500,000, 2,000 headsets, which will be a lot more quality. But I think it's kind of taking that cap off, and you'll see everything kind of creeping up to try to. They can stay under 3,500, but they can still produce more higher performant headsets. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, at the price that they're offering it, I think it's a GameStop for $499 for the MetaQuest 3 VR, which has the cameras in it. You can buy a whole set of them for the whole family for the price of one of the Apple devices, which you would have to share. And, since the Apple devices has built-in optics for everyone's eyesight, tailored to each person's eyesight, I don't know how easy that would be to change out diopters or anything. So that might be a better solution for some families, whether to invest in $4 or $500 headsets so you can have a family viewing experience with a game, let's say, first-person shooters, as opposed to a solitary experience for $3,500.
Next question.
From Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway, using the Blackmagic URSA for Greenscreen with Ultimatte can cause some issues with Moire if not using Rawlite or other optical low-pass vendors. Is this issue also present on their new cameras?
I'm assuming that what you're talking about is Greenscreen from a LED wall. So not a green screen. So because I can tell you that we don't have that problem with regular green screens, or at least I don't. At least the green screens that I work on, I don't have any problem with green screen in a Blackmagic camera. We shot a lot of green screen with it, so I don't think that's a problem. The new these are the optical low pass filters, which is what and these are the things that break down the they get rid of a lot of the moire that go through it. So they are more sensitive to that at very specific, it's usually at a specific zoom angle or zoom length, or in a specific position for the camera that you'll see these moire in the system. So it's not across the entire thing, but there's new Blackmagic cameras with the optical low pass filter there. And that's going to help, with the things when you're dealing with LED walls. I don't typically use LED walls for green screen, so for a variety of reasons, and so I find that they limit what I can do a lot. So I tend not to incorporate them into the system. So, but I think that's what I'm assuming that's your problem with regular green screens. We don't have any issue with moire. Go ahead, Courtney.
Are they maybe talking about the Bayer arrangement of the sensor because the green it'll have double the green sensor?
Well, without the low pass,
without the low pass,
any camera without low pass is going to see more moire.
Right.
And so and that has to do with the patterns on the LED wall because the moire is directly connected to the pitch of the background. So a lot of people have LED walls.
No, I'm not talking about an LED wall. I'm talking like a regular flat green screen.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
If the sensor pattern itself is showing up in the file of a high resolution file, the sensor pattern in the camera is showing up because it's a Bayer. When it's debayered, it's not. Maybe their debayering filter doesn't take into account the positions of the green sensors versus the red and the blue, which there's double the green sensors. So.
All I can say is I've shot a lot of green screen with Blackmagic cameras and never seen that. But now I will say there are a couple things that I tend to do. I tend to make sure that my green screen, this probably, it could be possible to have that happen. But if you're doing what I would consider proper green screen for things, which means that I'm at least 10 feet away from the green screen, that I have a short enough depth of field to put it into out of focus, that I have, I'm not using an LED wall. If you do those things, I don't notice a lot of green, but I consider like 5 feet bare minimum. And usually I have a shorter depth of field as I kind of work through that. So I don't, I've shot green screen in all kinds of different environments and with all kinds of different cameras and not seen on a fabric green screen, not seen that. We definitely see it in LED walls. And part of it is the curved walls are typically 2.3 to 3.2 millimeter. And that's, in my world, too big. So I'd rather have a flat screen that was down at 1.7 or lower or even under a millimeter. And so those are the kind of things that we're looking for oftentimes in green screens. If we're or not green screens, but LED walls, they tend to be much less susceptible to moire. But I haven't seen it on a green screen. I'm not sure. You'd have to probably give us more detail about what kind of green screen you're working with there. Next question.
From Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas, comment on Letterboxd, the social network for recommending and reviewing movies, which has become kind of a shibboleth for film nerds over the past decade. And a link.
I don't know what a shibboleth is. I'm not. It's outside of my world. But and also, I've never heard of Letterboxd. so evidently, it's not taking the whole world by storm yet. So I don't know either of those there. Next question.
All right, next question from Douglas Carmichael. How do you create an ambient environment for an Atmos mix if you aren't using a mic designed for Atmos recording?
Well, you use a lot of mics. You're oftentimes you're not using mics that are designed for Atmos recording. You're using mics to gather the air information that you want to mix into that. So you may you're making those objects or beds within the Atmos system. You can do things like ambisonic and be grabbing the field that you can then grab onto things from there. Typically, I would think about that more as a bed. I would think of the things that I'm recording more in the when I'm thinking about recording, I would be thinking more in the world of individual objects or individual areas that I want to cover there. So, but I actually don't know of a mic that is designed perfectly for Atmos. That is, I don't know what that would be. so you would, but I think that the different, you could be looking at a mixture of ambisonics and area mics and lots of other mics that would grab different elements that you would recombine back into an Atmos mix. Next question.
Next question from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Do you think I'll be able to plug my Tula mic into the USB-C interface of an iPhone 15 Pro Max? Lately, the Tula has been rocking it in after hours, by the way.
Go ahead, CJ.
The only thing that you might have trouble with is I'm not sure if it'll power that microphone. I plugged my audio interface into the iPhone last night to try and record the personalized voice with my microphone. It didn't like that, by the way. It wanted the built-in microphone to do it. But I think you'd be fine. The only thing you might run into is you may need to have a powered hub to get power to the microphone. And obviously battery life is a consideration.
Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. Would Logic or Studio One work best for podcast editing? Most of my DAW experience has been for music production, and I like how Studio One hides parts of the UI that aren't appropriate for podcast work. And there's a link.
I don't have any real discussion. I don't have any real opinion about Studio One as far as editing it. I edit podcasts in Logic, and primarily because I want to do other things with Logic, and I like being able to build up the muscle memory. So the idea is that Logic, when I first started going back to it, I hadn't used it for a while. It was just remembering where all the keys were and the zooms and the zoom outs, and having it become something that was more comfortable for me. And I also do have some ideas around doing some podcasts that are a little bit more atmospheric and playing around with Atmos and so on and so forth. And so I jumped into it there and started to work with it. And I am trying to, I use it all the time for that. And there's some idiosyncrasies to Logic that I'm running into as I do the podcasts. But it's mostly because I'm planning to do other things with it, and I want to make sure that I'm just learning one pipeline and understanding and getting comfortable with it. So that's why I tend to use that. And I would use Pro Tools most likely if it didn't have iLock. Like the iLock makes me so insane because I don't have a key. I have software iLock, and the software iLock, whoever designed that should be fired. Like it's just the worst. Go ahead, CJ.
I think with any tool, it's really important to have the tool get out of the way of doing the tasks that you're trying to achieve. For me, I'm passionate about keyboard shortcuts. It doesn't matter if I'm in Excel or I'm in Logic or I'm in Final Cut or I'm in Resolve. If I can have muscle memory do the work for me, then I can think about what I'm actually trying to achieve. So whatever makes the end product that you want to get to, and it is nice enough, it's the nicest tool for you to get the job done, that's what you use.
Next question.
Next question from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. How can a microphone cost $4,599 be a good value, like the Soyuz 017 series large diaphragm condenser microphone?
Good guy.
Yeah, some of these mics are handmade, and there's just not a whole lot of people that are willing to go to that level. There's $50,000 Sennheiser headphones that are also at CES that you can demo and try out. So at the high end of the spectrum, people are looking for those little nuances. And if you have somebody that's recording like a Strat, a violin from the 1700s, that's a multi-million-dollar piece, and they don't pull it out of the vault very often, and it's going to be played by a world-renowned person that's not going to live very long. You want to use the best, and if that's what the studio technician pulls, on our panel, Mitch uses the $3,500 Neumann U87. So it's just different strokes for different folks. What'll get you there, and what kind of quality that you need. But also, you need a good preamp behind it. So it's not just the mic; it's the whole chain.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, these mics, I looked at them. If this is a new company, I haven't heard of Soyuz before, but if you look at them, they come in an FET or a tube type, so you can have actual valves in there, and it takes a high voltage power supply, and it looks like a designer product, because it's got the mic head on the top and the can on the bottom, like the old Telefunkens used to have. But the problem is, when people are used to paying $3,500 for a mic, it's for a classic mic that isn't made anymore, so that's how it has all this value. It seems to be they're going for the prestige value of trying to create a prestige product without necessarily having a reputation to back it up.
Good, CJ.
The other question is, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to record? Good value is driven by what are you trying to produce with the tool that you're trying to produce it. Then there's diminishing returns. The difference between a $10 microphone and a $100 microphone is magnitudes bigger than the difference between a $1,000 microphone and a $5,000 microphone, unless you've got that whole entire chain that's designed to do a very, very, very specific task. So, what's the tool that's good for what you're doing?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, the first time that I pulled the new Shep CMIT Mini out of the case, and it's in this beautiful wooden case. Actually, I have a reaction video up on YouTube. I'll put a link to it, and it's recording into a sound devices. And the nuances in my own voice as I talked into this mic, and I've demoed hundreds of microphones. And the first time that I heard that Shep's was just so natural and smooth and detailed. It's become a standard. I mean, if you look behind the scenes of a lot of movies, it's Shep's. I mean, Mickey, I'm sure he'll pop in the chat and say, yep, confirm. So there's just pieces that become standards because they deserve it. And Shep's is a brand. If I was looking at these Russian mics versus Shep's, I would go with what's tried and true, but also ask around in the communities is engineers that actually do that. Robert Scoble, who was here the other day, I wonder what his microphone cabinet looks like. And he'd probably say different mics for different pieces, this one's good for vocals or female vocal. I mean, you start to get into those nuances where it's female versus, male. There's different mics tailored to different people and different frequencies.
Next question.
From Brandon Buttram in Indianapolis, Indiana, NAB NYC is less than a month away. What is office hours coverage going to look like?
We're pretty excited about it. I mean, it's probably going to be a little bit longer than normal. We have a booth, so we have a 10 by 20 booth that NAB is providing. I'm just finalizing bandwidth for it. We also, so we're going to have some folks, and what we're trying to do is bring people in to actually talk to the panelists. So there's not going to be another moderator at the booth talking to people. They're really going to be talking to the panelists if we get the bandwidth things sorted out next week. We're just trying to. It's a little complicated in these events. So anyway, but we'll have the booth there that we'll be able to interview folks, and then we'll have. It looks like 2 live views to bounce around in, and so we expect to have. We're going to be taking over the Wednesday and Thursday of office hours to do that. So we'll start at 10 o'clock our time in New York. I'll be there, and we'll have and we'll put out one more announcement to let any last stragglers who want to jump in, jump in. But it'll be all closed up in the next couple days if you want to volunteer on it. But we are going to experiment with a lot of those things. We're probably going to do a little experimentation with we're trying to work out doing some tests with the Blackmagic Cloud as well. So stay tuned for more of that. But we plan to have some table work where we bring people in to talk. And then we also have someone's got an open mic. I can hear them breathing. So anyway, we definitely this will probably be the most time we've spent on it. And part of this is because the table will allow us to slow down a little bit. So we can actually for the roaming crew, they can be between segments as we kind of go through that process. And so we think that that's going to make a huge difference and it really set up things. I mean, I don't know if I'll be willing to cover, if the table goes well, I don't know if I'll be willing to cover an event if we don't have a table in the future. So, because I think it's going to make a huge difference in how we do it. So stay tuned for that. Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. Maroon 5 had a Las Vegas residency that was performed in Dolby Atmos using an L Acoustics 9.1.4 PA without using an ELISA processing unit. Wouldn't you need ELISA for immersive mixing with L Acoustics? L Acoustics seems to be an ecosystem company.
It is an ecosystem company, and the processing, oftentimes they have a system that's built for that, but it doesn't necessarily need it. I mean, you're still just deriving channels. I think it would be very hard to do without the rest of it there, but you wouldn't need to have it. It wouldn't be required, I don't believe. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, riddle me this. I didn't understand if you're recording it for later, listening at home, in surround, that would make sense. But if you're doing PA in the room is the room, and the room is what's generating the acoustics. You don't have to artificially recreate the acoustics in the room that is the room.
Well, you're not recreating the acoustics, but it's giving you moving the music and everything around you. So, most of the time, I mean, it's like a left-right array. That's how people are experiencing it, and this is being able to have the music really, be coming from different areas while you're sitting in it, so you can really hear that surround. And I haven't sat in a room full of people. I've sat in a recording studio that is mixing a live show, and it's a very superior experience.
But
And so
a recording studio is usually a very dead room, and a hall where you're performing with a live audience is usually not that dead a room.
Well, that depends on how they built the room. You know, like there's definitely halls that I've been in that are dead, like dead. You know, and which you know, and that creates a whole, you know, set of impulse challenges, you know, for that. But I you know, I think I don't know. You know, I'm going to guess that and if they did this, I'm guessing they did it at the MGM Theater. This is the Dolby the Dolby has partnered with MGM to build these residencies out. So I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but I think that might be where it's at, and that's been very well treated for, you know, doing this kind of thing. And so reducing all those reflections are very important as far as the experience goes. And you know, the harder part a lot of times with the processing is really who really gets that whole experience. You have a large volume of people, and the people, there's always one thing that I'm even Courtney's seen. I'm very ruthless about getting to the optimum seat. I think we were down at Amazon, and I think we ended up sitting. We were at the Amazon theaters down there for a demo and for SEMTI, and I think that we were sitting there for an hour beforehand because I was like, I'm going to have this seat. Like, we can talk to other people, but I'm still going to sit where I want to sit. And so, anyway, so I think that's always the challenge, is that there's about 12 seats in most theaters that all the speakers are kind of tuned to. And so those are the ones you want to sit in. How do you handle the rest of the audience? And I do think that you have to, and I haven't seen the final build of the MGM one, but it's probably a pretty focused group of people. It's probably not going around the booth. Like where surround stops to really work is when, you know, having big crowds that go around the stage and all the other things that becomes, and that's what acoustics specializes in, is how do you deliver all of that audio in a way that everyone can hear. So, but it is an interesting. It'd be interesting to bring folks that worked on that on. We'll see what we can do. Next question.
From Ike Potter in Hanover, Germany. What is a cheap option to bring NDI HX signals from several iPhones into different HDMI inputs of an ATEM mini switcher? Provided having spare laptops, I guess these, one per phone, each running NDI suite connected to the ATEM via HDMI?
Good guy.
Yeah, that's definitely a cheap option. Just open up Studio Monitor and go ahead and take the HDMI out of a laptop. Another option would be probably the cheapest is the Bird Dog Play. So this is an Ethernet to HDMI device. They're like $149. That's another option. If you have Apple TVs, you can use the Sienna app, and that's one of the most stable that I've found. So I like that option. If you don't have additional hardware encoders, so I have a couple different Magewells that I also use. And then you want to make sure that those phones, if you're going to be doing this a lot, you want to go ahead and get an Ethernet adapter for the phone. So that way the phone is hardwired into the system and you're not just using Wi-Fi. So those tips should help you get what you need.
Next question.
Next question from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. Has anyone used one of these mini tripods? Are they useful? There's a link to pockettripod.com.
Good, Courtney.
Well, it's misnamed because it doesn't have 3 legs, and a tripod has 3 legs. That's what it means. If you take a look at it, it fits in your wallet, apparently, and you unfold it, and it holds the iPhone on a flat surface. So you got to carry around this stone surface with you in your backpack in order to put it up at eye level. So there's that problem. But it's good for propping it up, I suppose, so you don't have to find something around to prop it up on.
How much does it cost?
I don't know. Let's see.
$30.
$30. Yep. No, wait. $70? Oh, two of them for $70.
And I'm gonna talk here for a second because I was like, oh, we're about to close up, and then I realized there were a bunch of questions in the drop, so we're gonna bring those in. The question manager in the background. I just want to apologize. I'm doing a lot of things all at one time, and so it's a little bit of a let's see here. Yeah. So we'll see if we can move them over. Just move them over. They don't have to do anything. Just move them. I'll move them. we just got to get them over there. Oh, they came in as they broke. Or did they break? Let's see here. Hold on. Interesting. So we must have. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. we're still experimenting with this little thing, and it just takes a minute for it to. That's really interesting. It took a minute to populate. It came over and they looked blank on the way through. No, let's go to the next question.
Next question from Peter Rosado in Las Vegas. Hopefully not a silly question. Is there a concern about the information shared when leveraging the large language model capabilities in email, document analysis, and other examples like what was discussed this morning? And a QR code question.
There's a lot of concern about that. So companies are building their own internal LLMs. I'm definitely not using this for anything that is mission critical, like or secret or anything else. There's a lot of stuff we do when we're talking to people that doesn't really matter, so it's not that big of a deal. But I would definitely not put anything in there that had trade secrets, that had anything that was problematic for me to send out to an external server. So I think that there are, I think a lot of what I'm using it for is processing stuff that I'm interested in. But again, there's definitely people that are concerned about that, and they should be. You are putting core information into an external area. Go ahead, CJ.
They do claim, if you are somebody that goes to get the Chat GPT Enterprise, if you're someone who goes to the Chat GPT Enterprise, that they have enterprise-grade security and privacy, but that's their claim. I still don't know if I would trust it, but there is a way that they claim to protect your information.
Next question.
Next question from Eddie Hewitt in Toronto, Canada. What are some of the ways to have closed captions and PowerPoint on the same screen? Both are two different inputs.
I think that the big thing that you want to think about is designing that shouldn't be that big of a deal, except for the fact that the closed captions, you need to think about your slide design so that the closed captions are not going over top of things that you need to see. So that's the big challenge when you start to use closed captions and you're expecting people to use, a lot of people to use them, which is becoming more and more the case. You want to think about, how you design slides and leaving that area opened. We do a lot of testing with that in areas where we know there's a lot of accessibility or there's going to be a lot of people watching it, is to make sure that lower area there is left open and we're not putting things that matter. You can have some graphics go down there. So it's basically what we would consider action safe, but not title safe. And so, and that is a little bit more. So title safe is typically 20% of the frame, and action safe being 10% of the frame. And we would consider, if I know we're using captions, we would consider title safe maybe 25 or even 30% of the frame at the bottom, and then action safe being still the 20%. So we're increasing it a little bit more than normal if we really are building slides against it. If you're not using a lot of text in slides, which is the way you should build slides, by the way, then it doesn't matter as much because people will get the idea. So, but what you should do is not use a lot of text in your slides, and then it's not as big of a deal. Next question.
From Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada. How many channels of audio can QuickTime Player on Mac record? I've got a file that has 8. Is there a hidden menu in-app to select channels from a multi-channel interface I/O?
I don't know. Technically, like an SDI signal will take 16, but I think it might be 8. But the only thing I would check, and I've never really tried to figure out, I have to admit, I've never tried to do that. Make sure that it's not 8 pairs instead of 8 channels, because the QuickTime may be thinking of those as pairs, but I've never tried to record more than 2 channels on QuickTime. So we'll have to do some research on that. Next question.
From Mandy Van Cleve in Monroe, Ohio. Has anyone used the external recording feature on the iPhone 15 Pro models?
I haven't yet, but I'm planning to do it over the weekend. So if you ask this again on Monday, I'll probably know. So I have the drive ready to go, and I literally popped up and it said last night when I went to record my kids' sessions, it popped up and said you can't record 4K 60 on the internal storage. You need an external drive to record 4K 60 ProRes log, which is what I was trying to do, which is totally absurd, I admit. And so we're working on. I'm going to play with that and put it into a drive and see how well it works. Next question.
From Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. I'm having the blue screen on the iCan teleprompter. What can I do to resolve the issue? I've replaced the cables, powered off, still showing a blue screen.
The blue screen on the iCan, if I remember correctly, it doesn't have an input, so it's not seeing the input. So you may have the wrong input selected. Go ahead, Courtney. Can't hear you, Courtney.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say is make sure you have the right input selected. And if it isn't getting the ICANN, some of those smaller monitors are really picky about frame rate, and they may not be able to take 60 hertz. They may have to only take 30 hertz. So look at that. Check your frame rate and the format of the video you're trying to feed it. Because if it's not the exact correct aspect ratio, a lot of times the scaler that's built into those smaller monitors can't handle anything other than standard Rec 709, 1024 by 768 or 1920 by 1080. The standard monitor display resolutions for HD and full HD.
Next question.
Next question from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. The romance between Chiefs tight end Jason Kelce and world's biggest pop star Taylor Swift represents an alliance with the only cultural force in America bigger than the league itself. A New Yorker article to follow.
Go ahead, CJ.
It's interesting. It seems like the Taylor Swift fandom it's almost like it's become sentient and it's its own organism outside of their control. When I got up in the morning on Thursday and I was having breakfast in the hotel and I'm watching the TV, they were still talking about the fact that Taylor Swift attended an NFL game. The NFL changed its banner on Twitter temporarily to not be about football, but to be about Taylor Swift. It's kind of incredible to watch it. There was another tweet where she was eating, I think, chicken nuggets with ketchup and what could have been mayonnaise, but the person wrote the article that said it's ketchup and seemingly ranch. And then Heinz followed up with a tweet of a mocked-up bottle of ketchup and seemingly ranch. And you're just like, are you kidding? Then the Empire State Building apparently lit the top of the Empire State Building red and white, and then they tweeted ketchup and seemingly ranch. And you're just, it's its own organism. It's crazy.
We talked about this a little earlier, farming versus hunting and gathering. One thing that some artists are really good at, and Taylor Swift happens to be exceptional at, is building that fandom. And the thing is that it's something that I have done shows that included Taylor Swift, and it's a whole different thing. But her focus on her fans, and really how she interacts with them over it's not been the last year or when she needed them, but over the last decade is what's really built this, and the fact that she doesn't come across as perfect or anything else. She is who she is. And I think she's done a really good job of having people. We had a babysitter who was, she's a Swiftie, and she basically babysits just to get money to go to Taylor Swift shows. You could tell that there was this thing about there's an identity connected to doing that. There's a lot of other people just fans, but there's identity there that is really interesting. But it's I think it's really culturally, it's really interesting of how she's really built that up over many years of diligent and constant work. It's not something that she does every once in a while or right when an album gets released. It's something she's doing all the time. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, what really amazes me about this question is that Paul Wallace, who is a few years older than I am, has his finger on the pulse of pop culture. I'm proud of you, Paul.
Okay. Oh yeah, go ahead, TJ.
The other thing I'll say, and I found Twitter's or the NFL's Twitter banner that they changed here, which I thought was kind of funny. But the other thing that I'll just kind of comment on is the fandom has become such a juggernaut for eyeballs on the internet that it's almost like every social media office around the country had a meeting and said, if you can tangentially relate to Taylor Swift's next door neighbor's brother's cousin, like relate to it. Because it's gonna attract X amount of eyeballs. Like it's almost a currency at this point, where like you're gonna have a multiplying factor of this X if you can somehow relate to Taylor Swift, and it's crazy.
Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. What would you think of an Elisa Studio second hour or lab?
Yeah, I love that. We'll see if we can bring him on. Next question.
From Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia, I have tried to reconfigure my setup and have run into a lot of problems because of limited space. Has anyone used the portrait mode to save space?
No. so I think the 16:9 is good. I wouldn't use portrait mode to save space on what's behind me. Go ahead, CJ.
The other, I'm wondering if he means portrait mode like turning a monitor so that it is rotated 90 degrees. Because for instance, one thing I do on my desk when I'm working on large databases or spreadsheets, I like to use a monitor that's long so I can see more rows. And then when I'm not using it for spreadsheets, it's almost like it's two smaller monitors stacked on top of one another. So maybe it's something about monitor setups. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, let us know in more detail, Tony. We'll keep on digging into that. But we'd love to help you. I wouldn't if you're talking about shooting in portrait mode. I wouldn't do that. Next question. From Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas, subscriber growth has stalled at masterclass events, prompting them to slash their headcount and focus on shorter courses with fewer A-list celebrity instructors. What speaking style would lead to masterclass success? They put an enormous amount of effort into what they've done up until now. They were shooting some of these in the building that we're in, and it's incredible. It's when you think of those master classes, we think about doing training with 3 people. These are full set. Most of those master classes are done in full sets that they built inside of a sound stage. The crew is probably 40, 50 people. It is an intense training. That has been great, and it's set an upper bar of what that could be. But I will say that I've often thought there's a lot of people with great knowledge in these areas that we could probably do this with a little less money than what they're doing. And so I think that there is definitely some opportunities for them and more flexibility. I think that what they've gotten really good at is building this brand and building a pipeline of how to do these things. I think that shorter courses would make sense. I don't know if I've watched an entire course from Masterclass. I'm a subscriber of Masterclass, and we just finished watching, or my wife finished watching. I've watched pieces of the Alice Waters one on, and it's been really good. It's really good, and there's lots of good pieces of this puzzle. So I would say that I applaud that. I think that was probably what needed to happen next. You can't keep on producing stuff at this level, unless you really keep, growing at an incredible pace. And I think they've probably hit the people that want to do it. As a production, as something to aspire to, I guess what I would say is that I think that, and you can, if someone wants to cut to what CJ's showing, it'd be great too. Just to show that I can talk under it. If as a production person, I look at it all the time and think about, how they do that production. But I know after seeing some of the behind the scenes that it is not trivial to shoot the kind of stuff that they're shooting. I mean, this is definitely the apex of production quality, in this process. And just really it's good to learn from, but to also understand that it takes a lot. You may think that this is just a handful of cameras, in a little team of 5. It's not. It's 45, 50 people in a sound stage, with, steady cams and jibs and, all kinds of other things. And it's, planned over months and developed. And so I think that they do have to find a wider delivery method. And I think that, again, if they can, one thing that they did prove over COVID is they're really bad at live. So, they're really bad. They're really good at shooting all these things. As soon as you go down to one camera, that just drops off into the abyss. And so I think that combining, and this is what I've always thought, and we're going to start experimenting more with this on what we're doing, but combining what they're doing, which is incredible, and then discussions like what we do, I think is the future of education. Is a little bit of both of those things is really powerful. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I was curious as well as to what a spreadsheet would look like with the breakdown, because I heard that there was upwards of 50% to the talent. So if they're giving away that kind, there's nothing left. If they're doing 30, 40, 50 person shoots at that level with, big ARRI cameras and multiples of them, plus great sets, great locations, and building the sets, yeah. It's a big production. As far as styles, I tried to join their affiliate program a few years back, and they're like, no, you need to be like a big website. So I think that they need more people like that. They need to lessen that bar so that affiliates can make some money too to bring in their people. And then also, as far as content, there's a lot of different people that are having success selling these courses that are upwards of $2,000. These internet marketing type courses that if they were to throw some of those in there that were just really expensive ones, but then go for volume along with that affiliate program. I mean, it's working for people. There's this guy, Frank Kern. There's some of these people out there that have these, Shailene Johnson, Tony Robbins. They have these high, really expensive pieces of content that if those were in there, I'd be glad to pay my $300. I mean, I'm a subscriber, so I think it was $300 a year if I remember right.
Good, Courtney.
Yeah, you got to remember the people that are in front of the camera are top-notch people in their field, and especially if you're doing these master classes on production, you're not going to want to have be paying, Scorsese a big paycheck and then have somebody directing who's just out of film school. So you want to hire a top-notch director to direct them because, a lot of these, people that are top of their field don't necessarily want to have a cinematographer that's just out of film school or something. So you're paying for quality film crew to shoot that stuff to maintain your level of professionalism just on the set,
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of the stuff that we've done, I mean, again, we've done a couple that have been close to some of these things, and they're definitely not film students that are doing them. So, but they're still at a fraction of the cost. I mean, we had someone with a pretty long, our DPs were pretty long list on IMDb. So you can build. There's a big gap there, but it is an enormous amount of infrastructure to make these work between like the kind of shows we were doing were $50,000-$60,000, and the kind of shows that they're doing are, my guess is $500,000 is probably $500,000 to $1 million is what they're spending on these pieces. Go ahead, CJ.
I've done 2 or 3 of these that were the more hands-on with cooking, and I found that those are really, really nice. The other thing that's nice about the cooking ones is they actually come with a PDF booklet that goes along with it that says, hey, before you start this class, go to the grocery store, buy these ingredients. That was the Gordon Ramsay one. But then I also was watching some on storytelling and film scoring and business leadership. And you just look at these frames, these still frames, and you're like, wow. I mean, they're really taking it.
I will say the early ones, they had David Mamet and a couple other ones that were some of the very first ones that came out, because I've been tracking them since they turned on, because it was like, this is what I've been dreaming of doing, is training at really high levels and everything else. So I looked at it, and it was kind of like, we're going to pay David Mamet a lot to just sit there and talk, and then we'll cut it into something that tries to make sense of all of that. But it didn't feel as organized as you would think it would feel. But again, I don't think it necessarily has to be this organized. So for instance, a good example is I can never get the order right, but it's flour, salt, water, yeast. There's a book, and
salt, fat, acid, heat.
No, that's a different one. Different book. Sorry. So so that's about cooking in general. I have that book as well. It's the flour, salt, water, yeast, or whatever is about making bread, and what it was. It's a great book. It's how I learned to make bread. And what's interesting is that reading the book was very hard to understand exactly what. Yeah, you can cut to that. The reading was trying to understand exactly what it was. But the person who wrote it, if you go to YouTube, you're going to find, if you just do a search for the flour, water, salt, yeast, he has some videos that take the recipes that are from there and just shows you how to do them. It's a single camera or 1 or 2 cameras. He kind of walks you through the technique. And that's a really, really great. It suddenly everything made sense to me, and I was like ready to make bread, and then I made hundreds of loaves of bread to figure out how to make bread. It was very silly. Anyway, the other one, because we're talking about bread here, is this one is a great example of good quality that doesn't. This is Barrio. The Barrio lesson, breadlessons.com, and what I want to show here is he did this for much less than Masterclass, and I'll argue that I learned as much from these courses around bread than I did from the bread ones in Masterclass. even though it didn't look as pretty, it was very acceptable. And so I know we're all digging into bread and everyone's getting hungry. I know I'm getting hungry just watching these videos. And so, but if you cut to CJ's there again, we're going to get, we have time here on Saturday, but though this is just a very simple one that was done, well, and you get a sense of the author and then you feel more of the book. And I think that more authors, especially ones that are doing how-to, should really do more of that. Now, I have a dream of going up and reshooting those with him, with 3 cameras and great lighting and everything else. And it would be a bunch of us volunteering some time and maybe have a little bit of expenses. And I still think that we would do something that, again, there's this level of what's good enough to make this actually useful for the viewer. I completely agree. If you have a Martin Scorsese, if you have someone else, you're going to have to knock it all the way out. But I do think that there's a lot of opportunity. I'm part of a CSA, you pay a farm directly and then they give you stuff every week of whatever is available. And I feel like they should be doing their own videos, streams to all their customers. Like, hey, you just got eggplant. Here's how to cook it. Here's what you should do with that. And so those are the kind of things I think could be done. So I think that we're going to see an explosion. And I think that Masterclass there's a lot of room between college students and what they're shooting right now that could be useful. Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. What cost-effective studio desks furniture do you prefer? I'm looking for something less than $1,000 US.
Wood shop. That's what I'm doing. I'm about to rebuild my table here, and I'm going to probably use a mixture of, I've decided to use either speed rail or even just plumbing. I kind of like the plumbing look, but I'm looking at using like some basic plumbing there, so that all the major infrastructure is all metal, and then I'm going to build the stuff on. There's a wood shop. The library in my town has a wood shop. How many libraries have a wood shop? All libraries should have a wood shop. And so I'm going to go build some tabletops for that. Next question.
From Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. I just bought a Hyundai Ioniq 5, even though I live in the shadow of the Tesla Austin Gigafactory, because I love the paddles that let you control regenerative braking. Any thoughts on Tesla versus the Ioniq 5 regenerative braking and interface in general?
Good, John.
Paul, the Tesla Optimus robot is coming to your house to smush your little iconic 5. Be careful.
Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, CJ, what is that toolbar on the bottom of your desktop? Okay, so I am not a Mac immigrant. I'm a Mac native, but I was in a Zoom meeting with a consultant that we use, and she had this thing called UBar on the bottom. And essentially, it is an emulation of the Windows taskbar. Let me cut to that. It is an emulation of the Windows taskbar for the Mac. So if you go down here, sorry, I don't mind things. So if you're zoomed in down here, you'll get a little U-bar where I can click on all of my different windows. If I hover, apparently it's not working Sonoma there. If you hover, it'll say the windows that are open and allow you to switch to them. The other thing I like is that in the bottom right, it shows you a quick little calendar. So just one more thing to go, but UBAR, U-B-A-R, and it is on setup.
Next question.
Next question from Ike Potter in Hanover, Germany. I downloaded many YouTube video files, MP4, all resolutions during the year. Playing them using browsers, Firefox, Chrome works fine, but with VLC Player, there is some sort of heavy motion blur. What am I doing wrong? Missing codecs? VLC settings?
I don't know why you would have. I play stuff back in VLC and I see that all. I never see that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'm curious as to how he downloaded them. And I think the popular one in this group has been Downy if you're on the Mac to suck things down. And I haven't had any problems like that. I'm wondering what he was using to pull them down. If there was some different codec, if it was one of these free or kind of strange apps that you can use to pull YouTube videos down, that it stored it in something that's maybe older.
Downy is so great. In case you're wondering, like Downy is I use it every day. Like, oh, I need that for some demo or I need this for whatever. And you just throw the URL in and it just downloads the highest resolution that's available. Go ahead, CJ.
I was just going to throw in a similar comment. I think one of the single best features of Downy is that if I like somebody's channel and I know that I either want to put it into Plex or I'm about to go on a trip, if you copy and paste the root channel URL into Downy, it will queue up and download everything that they've ever done.
What?
It's crazy. I mean, I'm talking like I had one where I had 1,500 concurrent downloads at some point, and now my Synology is mad at me. But yeah.
What? Oh my gosh. Okay. Next question.
From Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida. How does Fairlight compare to Atmos capabilities in Logic?
It's got a lot more. so Fairlight's got a lot more there. I'll say that the Atmos the interface is just a little clunkier than Logic, and I have to admit, for me, I'm looking at doing some stuff in Fairlight as well. Those are the only two apps that I plan to learn how to use is Fairlight and Logic. So yeah. Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, if you install UBAR, how do you disable the native macOS dock? All right, so this is another UBAR question, so I'm going to cut back to my Mac here. I don't actually disable the dock. I just put it over to the far left because I find that and hide it because I find that I still like to go there sometimes. Although the one thing that you can do within UBAR is there's an advanced menu that allows you to turn on dockless mode, which somehow disables the dock at the system level, and then
that's a terminal command.
Yeah, it'll do it in the terminal. It'll kill all your dock preferences. The screen will flash, and then that one is a little scary for me, but it works. But like I said, a pretty fully featured, well done application. I'm a huge fan.
CJ, great work. It's good to have you here. Your first day on, you did great. So both as a reader and as a panelist.
Could be better, but exciting.
Really, really great to have you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the crew. We hope you come off. So I know it's probably going to be weekends or whatever, but any days you can make it, we'd love to have you.
I'm definitely trying to chime in on Mondays too with the business folks. So I'm doing back to back to back. I'm today, tomorrow, and Monday.
That's perfect. Awesome. It's really, really great to have you. And great to have the rest of the panelists here. We can't do this without you. Thanks to to our producers for all the great questions. We also can't do this without you, and we also can't do it without the incredible tech crew on the back end that's developing all the software that makes this all work. That also is, managing and figuring out what we're going to do every day, and then finally, they are actually running the show and cutting the show. This is not done as you may have guessed. It's not done in normal Zoom. I think we did pretty good, and we had a pretty good time with the HDR stuff today. We're going to add individual color control for next week, so we should be able to watch. You'll see us playing with not just everyone or the whole program, but each person to see what's the best settings for them. So that'll be our next step there. So stay tuned for that. We traveled 77,000 miles today. That's 124,000 kilometers. And that is 613 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. That was a lot of things to think about all at one time, sitting there playing with the color correction while we're doing the answers and while we're doing the thing, and then we're doing the thing. So there was one point where a guy went totally white because I wasn't sure. I was like, am I making any difference here or not? So I just went, and then I pulled back for a second.
Was there a link to that HDR feed? Did I miss it?
It's the only feed. Like if you go to it, so on Saturday, it is the feed. Yeah. Oh. So yeah, there's no other feed. We were doing tests, and I was like, I'm never going to get through this if I don't just start doing it. So Saturdays are the HDR. They're only HDR. And then hopefully by the end of I think it might actually happen by the end of October, but by the end of the year, the whole system will be all 4K HDR. We're finding some glitches in the encoder too, so we'll see how that goes.
Nice job on reading, CJ. Thanks.